everybody, it's Dan. So today we just go get some food, but just while we're doing that, I just thought I'd have a quick word with you about rent to rent, because I keep getting people coming through asking about rent to rent and can you do it and how easy is it and where do I get stuck and that kind of thing. So let me just cover a little bit of that for you. So the ultimate rent to rent business, let me just talk about that for a second before we get into the rest of it. The ultimate rent to rent business, if you didn't know about it, is a lettings agency, right? And let me explain why I think that is. Because with a lettings agency, if you're a landlord, or if you're looking after other people's properties, then every time you get a phone call, it's going to cause a problem for you, because it's going to be like it's going to be a boiler issue, or it's going to be a tenant's not paying, or there's an issue, right? And you're managing that and you're giving guaranteed rent, that's an issue. But if you're a lettings agency, every time you get a phone call and the boiler's gone down, well, there's an opportunity to make some money. It's or even better, it's not your money that you're having to spend to put that right. If a tenant absconds, there's an opportunity to make some money, maybe on finder's fees for getting a new tenant, that kind of thing. So I tell you what I'm distracted by right now. There is on the waterfront, and you can't quite see it here, but on the waterfront, because I'm just by the beach, there are like little cyclones, whirlpools of water coming up like a cyclone, which is pretty amazing. They've gone now. That was awesome. So that's what put me off. So if you're running a rent-to-rent business and giving guaranteed rent and a tenant doesn't pay, you're losing money, like a lot of money as well. The risk is quite big, because, you know, if it's a £600 a month rent and you're getting it for £400 a month and the tenant's not paying, you're now £600 down. Plus now you've still got to pay the landlord for £400. So it's a massive swing from one side to the other. Whereas if you're a letting agent and a tenant doesn't pay the £600, you're down £60. Like that's a big risk for me. Do you know what I mean? Conversely, however, you know, if you've got 10 properties and you're able to make that £200 per property, you're now making £2,000 a month. That's really good. But if one of those properties doesn't pay, you're losing £600 of that income. If 2 or 3 don't pay, you're down to almost zero income. That's a problem. Going the other way though, if you are doing £600 a month and you're a lettings agency and you're only making 60, you've got to rent out an awful lot of properties to get to say £2,000 a month. But that's okay, because you should be doing that over a period of time. People seem to think that I'm going to start rent to rent and then before you know it, I'll never have to work again. It's much higher risk is rent to rent than running a lettings agency. And if you've never run it before, why would you take that risk? I see people going, I'm just going to get my first deal, and then they get the first deal and it's £400 to the landlord, £600 income, so the £200 up, brilliant, 10 of them and I'm happy. But the problem is that they get the first one and they've never rented anything out before, they don't know what they're doing, and the tenant absconds, they don't pay the rent, or even worse, they stay and they don't pay the rent. Now you have to Section 8 them. You know, you're talking 6 months really from start to finish, maybe, to get rid of someone. Maybe 4 months, maybe 3 months. Plus you have to take them to court and all the rest of it. The risk is much, much greater, and for me it's too much of a risk. Why are you starting out on something that could bankrupt you? You get 2 properties, right, with £600 each. The landlord still wants their 400 quid, okay, times 2. So not only are you missing out on the £1,200 in total, you've got to pay the landlord £800. For me, rent to rent, you can do it, but you've got to be absolutely careful with this as a strategy. It's not like if you don't get a deal on property sourcing, you know, it's not like you can really mess up property sourcing if you do it right. I mean, I suppose you could say if I did rent to rent and I did that right, then I couldn't mess that up. But for me, it's not about you messing up, okay? This is one of the differences. It's about the tenant messing up, and you've got no control over that. At least on property sourcing, if you do mess something up, it's your fault. You're responsible for doing it. If on rent to rent the tenant doesn't pay, that's got nothing to do with you. You could have done absolutely everything right, being the nicest person ever, bent over backwards to help them, and you still get screwed by them. It's dealing with tenants. This is what tenants do. And I know people go, well, you shouldn't put tenants in the same box. Well, maybe you should be putting tenants in the same box, because they have capacity, what's the word? We have a capacity, that's not the word, we have a capacity not to pay from time to time. And if it's just 5%, so you think about that, if that's just 5%, okay, and you've got 20 properties, then one property is empty with a tenant not paying. So for you to get a tenant, if it's like 1%, that's 100 properties. You're still gonna, you know, do you know what I mean? Like 1% of tenants not paying, oh, that's fine. It's not fine, that causes a massive issue. And yet you're on about doing like 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 properties with rent to rent. You're gonna have tenants that ain't paying and you don't know how to handle it. For me, it's just too much of a risk. So on rent to rent, if you're gonna start up with rent to rent, I would just start up with a lettings agency. Go and do it properly. Don't just do it. You know, people start these businesses up. They don't do any training courses. They haven't got a website. They don't do any social media. They're just, it's like a hobby. You can't run a business like a hobby because it's not a business, it's a hobby. Right? Like, I can't explain that any clearer. If you're going to do it, jump in with both feet and do it properly, do it right. Don't half-arse this stuff. Anyone can half-arse it. That's why with so many unsuccessful people, it's because they half-arse it. Go in and do it properly if you're going to do it. Alright, I'm at the shops. I hope that's useful for you. We'll speak to you on the next video. My name's Dan Latto. Take care.